Well, I thought I wouldn't be doing any more lockdown vlogs, but here we go. Nothing is official, but just before 3 o'clock today, there were notices that went out that there is a COVID case in Auckland that does not have a clear connection to MIQ or borders. So everyone's freaking out a little bit. And then they announced that there's going to be a press conference around 6-ish tonight, so now everyone's convinced that we're going into lockdown, which I can't say I'm all that surprised. Over the past few weeks, there's been a lot of publicity going out about how if Delta gets loose in the community, how we're definitely going into lockdown because it is so transmissible. Today, there were even articles going around about how Delta spread from one MIQ room to another because the doors happened to be open for 3 to 5 seconds at the same time, and Delta was able to jump rooms that fast. So in the back of my mind, I've kind of suspected that this might happen sooner rather than later. So I have done like some preparation. Like we've got plenty of printer ink and printer paper on hand. You know, just little things like that. Like I know I've got a closet full of crafts for the kids, so it's not terrible. But John is out right now with a mask. We don't normally wear masks in Auckland, but I did make sure he had a mask with him, and he's doing a run by the hardware store for some supplies in case we're home for a while. There's some home improvement projects that we have on our list that we will have time to do if we're in lockdown for an extended period of time. So he is running off to Bunnings because if we go into a level 4 lockdown, that won't be open, but things like the grocery store and stuff will, so I'm not worried about food or anything like that. But stay tuned, 6 p.m. press conference should be interesting.
So far. But first, I want to assure New Zealand that we have planned for this eventuality, and that we will now be putting in place that plan to contain and stamp out COVID-19 once again. Going hard and early has worked for us before. While we know that Delta is a more dangerous enemy to combat, the same actions that overcame the virus last year can be applied to beat it again.
Good morning. It is the first full day of lockdown. So last night, as predicted, the whole country went into a level 4 lockdown, which is our highest level. It's pretty intense. Literally nothing is open. So you can go to the grocery store, you can go to the pharmacy, but that's about it. So there's also no click and collect, there's no takeaway, there's no online ordering from shops because no one is in those shops to fulfill those orders. So yeah, it is a full-on lockdown. For Auckland, we are in lockdown for 7 days. The Coromandel, a little peninsula, kind of a getaway vacation-y spot for a lot of people, is also on lockdown for 7 days because the infected individual apparently visited there this past weekend. The rest of the country is in lockdown for 3 days. So not terrible. I think everyone expects it to be extended. Not great news. Yesterday afternoon, when it looked like lockdown was imminent, we tried to get some things done. So I went to the library to stock up on books, especially for the kids. I stopped off at a little store next door to the library and got some new games to have on hand just for some fresh entertainment options. John went by the hardware store to get some things for some house projects, since we're going to have a lot of time at the house to do projects like that. He also did stop by the grocery store. I told him, I was like, you need to go to the grocery store right away if we're going to go, because it's going to be a madhouse. It was, but it wasn't. So there's been a lot of funny headlines about how New Zealanders were swarming the grocery store and buying up all the toilet paper, and this was actually one of my favorite headlines. So there's no mass diarrhea here. Leave the toilet paper alone. there was a bit of a line, but we legitimately needed some things like milk that we would have stopped to pick up anyway, so it was kind of a, gosh, we have to do this. We didn't go and like get any toilet paper or paper towels. We got like a chicken and some milk. So perishable things that we needed anyway. We did get takeout last night because I don't know when we're going to be able to do that again, and it's nice to be able to support local businesses, also not cook for a change since there's going to be a lot of time in the kitchen in our future. And yeah, we didn't make the kids do their homework since homeschooling starts today. Instead, we had a movie night, which was kind of good. Everyone got an opportunity to chill out and relax and kind of prepare for the week ahead. So this morning we're gonna do some breakfast. We're going to get the kids dressed and get our remodeled playroom up and running as a schoolroom again. So I will link our playroom remodel project up here. And man, I'm glad we did that. I'm glad it's done. I'm glad I have that space. So within an hour or two of Jacinda's announcement last night, the major newspapers and media outlets around the world were proclaiming that New Zealand's back in lockdown after just one case, and all of the internet commentary was interesting. So they fall into a couple of categories, which I would just like to give my response to as someone actually on the ground in New Zealand and in Auckland, where this seems to happen more often than not. So the first thing is, number one, why on earth would you do this for just one case? That's stupid. You know, why would you take away everyone's freedom for just one case? Why not put that one guy in isolation? Well, as we all know, COVID spreads. And it spreads quickly, and in fact this morning we woke up and there's already 4 more positive cases, including one nurse at a local hospital. So that's why. Second thing is, in New Zealand we get a list of all of the places of interest that an infected person has visited. So if you use the contact tracing app, it'll alert you if you have an overlap. Otherwise, it's kind of on you to go and check your own personal diary to see if you were at any of these places. And that really allows that gives the tracking and tracing people an extra tool to try to fence in this spread before it gets any worse. So we know that it spreads, we know that we need to track and trace, and the only way to do that is to do it quickly and to have some transparency on where people might have gotten infected. It's possible to do with one person. It's not possible to do with 1,000 people. So starting early makes it easier. This is our list so far of all the places that you would not want to have visited, and some of these places were really busy. Apparently the manager of one of the bars said that there were 70 to 80 people in there when the infected. The second big thing is, oh my gosh, how are you going into a lockdown? You can't do that forever. You know, you're taking away your freedoms. It's a virus, it's here to stay. You can't keep doing this. So to that I would say, it doesn't have to be here to stay. I mean, every once in a while New Zealand has a case that pops through the border, but that's really rare. And honestly, we are more free 98% of the time because usually we don't have any restrictions. We don't have to wear masks, we don't have to be limited in our social gatherings, and most importantly, we don't have to live in fear. So I am happy to do a lockdown like this because I know it works and I know I don't have to live with the virus. And I think that people who are saying, oh, we just have to learn how to live with this, are selling themselves short, and it's kind of disappointing. And it's because people have that attitude in other places around the world that we have had to shut our borders. So you're selling yourself short, everyone who thinks we just have to live with it. You don't. We are kind of the proof of that. The other, you know, this whole like, oh, it's taking away your freedom thing, I don't think many people, if anyone, really looks at it that way here. We look at it as, this is a strategy that has worked really well. We realize how lucky we are to not have any restrictions. We realize that us staying home is a way to give the tracking and tracing people a way to do their jobs and to get rid of this. And it's just us being good to our neighbors and our friends and our family who are here. and we don't look at it as a takeaway of any freedom, because we realize that a short lockdown results in much greater freedom. So that's the math that people here in New Zealand make, and we're fine with it. The third comment that I hear a lot is lockdowns aren't the key, vaccines are. And I will say that I am fully vaccinated. A lot of people are. The numbers that I've seen in the foreign press are a bit off. No, New Zealand is not as vaccinated as other major countries, but that's because, you know, for the most part, the vaccine manufacturers don't look at New Zealand as a priority to ship vaccines to, because we don't have coronavirus spreading wildly through the community. So ultimately, the idea is to get to a vaccinated population, and there is a plan to reopen the borders once the population is vaccinated, but we're not there yet. So it's not like this is something that we think will be going on 10 years from now, but it is something that's happening now because vaccine manufacturers haven't just sent buckets and buckets of vaccines here because we haven't needed them imminently as much as other places have, and people are getting vaccinated in a pretty methodical, easy way. So if you've checked out my blog, I do have my vaccine experience on there, and it was super easy, super quick, you know, no complaints there. So lockdowns are not intended to go on forever, but it is something that we're doing now so that we can get back to normal. And ultimately the idea is to have a vaccinated population without all of the sickness, suffering, and death that the rest of the world has had. So the plan for today is breakfast, hopefully get the kids dressed and their teeth brushed, goals. And I've got to spend some time online going through all the information from the schools to get organized. We're going to do homeschooling. It is an icky rainy day, which is kind of a bummer, so probably going to be spending the whole day inside. Not the most fun, but not terrible. There's been some requests to do some science projects, which is always an adventure and usually a messy one. And we're going to hopefully have kids who aren't completely coming apart at the end of the day and do maybe another family movie night. We've been going through the Star Wars movies, and we started with number 4, as one does, and last night we actually finished the first one, and I gotta say, I remember watching that when it came out when I was in high school, and everyone totally ragged on Jar Jar Binks about how annoying he was. And going back and rewatching this so many years later, I don't hate him as a character. I was really surprised by that, because I just remembered there being this just insane hatred for Jar Jar Binks, and I'm here to say that I don't hate him anymore. So I guess older and wiser. Anyway, that's what we've got on the books. Maybe we'll start episode 2 and see what happens next.
Simply put, at level 4, if you're in a place that is allowed to be open to provide services to people or transport, you must wear a mask. That's the...
Well, happy afternoon. We have survived more or less our first day in lockdown. The kids adjusted relatively well to going back to homeschooling and distance learning. We kind of eased into it today, got everything done that we needed to get done. There were only a few minor battles, but it's still exciting. They haven't gotten to the point where it's weary and they're sick of listening to mom and dad and it's not fun anymore. So stay tuned for more excitement on that front. I was able to go for a walk before lunch by myself, which was very good for my mental health. And it was good to see that more and more people are wearing masks when they're just out walking. I'd say that about 30% of the people out were wearing masks, even though we were just going for a walk in the park, so there's literally nothing else to do. And so I would expect that number to go up as the government is really pushing wearing masks this time, whereas before it was seen as a really optional and not necessary thing if you were just out doing exercise. I also saw on my walk out the funniest sign on a local liquor store. And I was just like, yeah, people have a sense of humor about this stuff. It's like everyone wants to get back to normal, but it is what it is. We're doing this so that we can get back to normal life, and that's just how we roll. After lunch, we had our 1 p.m. COVID announcement, and there are now 7 cases in the country. 4 of them are flatmates in their 20s, which includes a workmate of the original case, a nurse, a teacher, and then I'm not sure what the 4th person does, but apparently these 4 young adults really got around town, so we've been warned to expect a very long list of places of interest, and also we've been told to be prepared for this cluster to get to between 50 and 120 people. So it seems like a long way away because we're at 7 right now, but at least it gives us some perspective, and 120 is a lot better than 12,000, 120,000. It's a small number, so hopefully that number is reasonable and accurate and people do what they need to do so it doesn't get any bigger than that. We also learned that the strain that is going around is related to what is happening right now in Australia and New South Wales. So they are doing more genomic testing on 3 cases in MIQ now that came over from Sydney to see if there are any links with that. There are not any links with previous MIQ cases, so how this guy got COVID in the first place is still unknown, but we do have a little bit more information. We do have a general idea of where it came from, and so that makes people really glad that we have gone into lockdown as fast as we have, because everyone sees the numbers just going up and up and up over in Australia, and we don't want to have that same fate, so everyone's staying put. This afternoon, the kids wanted to do an art project, so this was kind of fun. I pulled out my sewing machine and started going through the basics of doing some sewing projects, which is something they've been asking to learn how to do for a while, so it was nice to have that time to start that process and those lessons. And we're not making anything fancy, but they had a good time and they actually did really well, so who knows, maybe we will get awfully crafty this lockdown. I have a fair amount of fabric kind of stashed in a closet, and who knows what we will do with that. So I don't know if you've got any ideas on what we should make or any really easy kid-friendly sewing projects, please comment below, because I could definitely use some inspiration and ideas. I only have so much brain power these days. This afternoon, we're just going to take it easy. I did take the kids out for a little scooter skateboarding session at the park, which was really fun. This evening, we're going to do some dinner. I think I'm going to do a really easy broccoli stir fry, and then assuming the kids are still in good moods and John and I still have some patience left, we will hopefully start episode 2 of Star Wars, because that is how exciting we are these days. Well, it is about bedtime, thank goodness. I feel like it's been a really long day. We did have a decent dinner. 1 out of 2 kids actually ate it, and we did start episode 2 and got to see the beginning of Anakin and Padme's love story. So that part of the evening was good. However, the bad part of the evening is the announcement that there are 3 new cases, and there are a lot more places of interest, including a lecture at AUT. One of the confirmed cases is a student there. There's another woman who's apparently 60 and does have a connection with the border, but they don't know if her case is connected to all of the other cases. So it's just looking a little bleak right now. And I know the point of going into a lockdown is to catch all these cases before they spread very far, but it's really scary when you look at the list of places of interest. I mean, it's grocery stores down in Newlyn up to places up in Albany. I mean, it really kind of runs all over the city, and some of these places are really big, really well populated, lots of visitors. So my fingers are crossed. I'm hoping for the best. I hope there isn't a lot of bad news when I wake up in the morning. Yeah. Things are getting real around here, but we're doing fine. You know, just hanging out at home and certainly not leaving anytime soon. So that's all for today. Please comment below if you've got questions about this experience or what's going on in New Zealand, and let me know if you are curious to see more.